Getting fired is an experience that nobody wants to go through, but unfortunately when you're a celebrity, news that you've gotten fired goes viral quickly. Even more embarrassing is the celebrities who get fired from their own shows. Let's get into the list. In at number 10, Lilly Singh. When it was announced that YouTuber Lilly Singh got her own late-night show with NBC, the internet was set ablaze because this was a massive step for YouTubers and influencers breaking into mainstream media. But after the show aired, it was clear it was too big of a step for Lilly and that she was not a natural when it came to hosting a show. After struggling through the first season, the show was picked up again for a second, but after the second season was proved to be no more interesting than the first, it was canceled by the network. When the series premiered in 2019, Singh became the first woman in more than 30 years and the first LGBTQ person to ever host a late-night program on a major network. Lilly announced the cancellation in a statement where she thanked NBC and her fans and said it's only the beginning for her career in TV. She's apparently made a production deal with UTA as well as a comedy project with Netflix. And at number 9, Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly was one of the people who put Fox News on the map and helped it to become the top of the ratings chart. But he was fired after multiple allegations of misconduct against women at the studio came to light. At first, the network stood by their star, but then 80 companies decided to boycott putting ads on the network, which forced their hand. At the time, Fox News was going through a massive transformation, losing another one of its biggest stars, Megyn Kelly, after she stood by fellow host Gretchen Carlson for coming out against her at the network. O'Reilly never admitted to any wrongdoings, and following his firing, he told Today, quote, "If you look at the totality, this was a hit job, a political and financial hit job," blaming left-wing organizations for his demise. And at number 8, Wendy Williams. Wendy Williams got fired from another gig before she got the coveted position of having her own show. She used to work for radio station Hot 97, where she had her own radio show, and she would talk about hot topics in Hollywood. But in usual Wendy fashion, she took it too far and paid the ultimate price. Wendy decided to post photos of Diddy on the beach when he was not wearing any clothes, if you catch my drift. And you could see everything in these photos. The station was obviously not happy with this, and she was suspended for the action, along with making a permanent enemy out of Diddy. After some time, the network decided to cut their losses and fire her. After this, Wendy did not stay down for long, and she ended up landing her own daytime show on network TV. Talk about a comeback. Although due to health concerns, Wendy is no longer hosting the show, and it will be overtaken by the Sherri Shepherd show. And at number 7, Matt Lauer. In 2017, NBC was at the center of a huge scandal when they suspended broadcaster Matt Lauer only minutes before he was set to go live on air. Instead of the usual Lauer and Savannah Guthrie starring the broadcast, it was instead Guthrie and Hoda Khattab. The women started the broadcast with transparency, sharing an internal memo that had been sent out just minutes before announcing the suspension of Lauer. In this memo, it claims that multiple allegations had been made that Lauer engaged in inappropriate conduct with other NBC employees. These incidents started at the 2014 Sochi Olympics and apparently continued when the women returned back from the trip. In the statement, NBC chairman admitted that there was reason to believe these were not isolated incidents. Lauer issued his own statement days later, admitting to the acts. He was then fired by the network and has not worked since. And at number 6, Sharon Osbourne. Sharon Osbourne was fired from her hosting gig on The Talk after she got into a heated debate with fellow host Cheryl Underwood while speaking about her good friend Piers Morgan. Morgan got tons of backlash after making some nasty comments about Meghan Markle and her interview with Oprah. Then the women of The Talk discussed the incident, and Osbourne took her friend's side. After this, it was announced that Osbourne was let go from the show. CBS said in a statement that her behavior, quote, "did not align with our values." When speaking about her firing with Bill Maher, she said, quote, "I'm angry, I'm hurt, I've been called so many things in my life, but a racist is not one I will take." Osbourne continued, quote, "She's entitled to her opinion, Piers is entitled to his, and that's what it's all about. Disagreeing with someone does not make you a racist in my book." A lot of Sharon's fans disagreed with her firing, and the ratings of the show plummeted after she left. Halfway number 5, Chris Cuomo. CNN's Chris Cuomo has officially been fired from his network after an investigation uncovered the anchor helped his brother, disgraced Governor Andrew Cuomo, during his scandal. Andrew Cuomo's crimes include government corruption and sexual misconduct. Earlier, they announced he was going to be suspended, barring the results of the investigation, but partway through, they uncovered evidence to fire him. CNN writes, quote, "While in the process of that review, additional information had come to light. Despite the termination, we will investigate as appropriate." This all came on the heels of an investigation by the New York Attorney General's office, which suggested that he was heavily involved in his brother's scandal. Following his termination, reports are coming out that Chris was accused of sexual harassment, and that's part of the reason for his termination. So it's clear no network will want to touch him now. And at number 4, Rush Limbaugh. The late Rush Limbaugh was a radio giant and had the biggest radio show in the country for many years. But before he became known for his own show, he was a football commentator for ESPN that ended up getting fired. During his stint as a football analyst on ESPN's Sunday NFL Countdown in 2003, he was commentating on quarterback Donovan McNabb and said, quote, "The media has been very serious that a black quarterback do well. There is little hope invested in McNabb, and he has a lot of credit for the performances of his team that he didn't deserve. The defense carried this team." After the comments, he got tons of backlash considering they were clearly racially charged, and Limbaugh was only supposed to be speaking about the performance of these athletes. In the end, he decided to resign from the position, I'm sure after some long talks with the network. He said in a statement, quote, "The great people at ESPN did not want to deal with this kind of reaction." After leaving that gig, he started up his own radio show called The Rush Limbaugh Show, and it was a huge hit right up until he passed away. And at number 3, Mike Richards. After the passing of legendary Jeopardy host Alex Trebek, Mike Richards stepped in as one of the potential frontrunners to replace him as host. Richards had been an executive producer on the show for years prior and decided to put his hat in the ring to host when the position became available. However, that stint did not last, and shortly after Richards was announced as the new host, problematic behavior from his past started to resurface. These allegations were regarding Richards' behavior and comments towards women and minorities. Following the backlash, he was not only fired as host, but he was also fired from his executive producer position. The show released a statement saying, quote, "We had hoped that when Mike stepped down from the host position at Jeopardy, it would have minimized the disruption and internal difficulties we've all experienced these last few weeks. That clearly has not happened." And at number 2, Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon was fired from many of his shows and hosting gigs after he went on a strange anti-Semitic rant. In June of 2020, Nick Cannon was interviewing Professor Griff, who has a history of making anti-Semitic comments. During this interview, Cannon went on a bizarre rant calling Jewish and white people savages. At one point he said, quote, "The people that don't have melanin are a little less." Adding, quote, "They're acting as animals, so they're the ones that are actually closer to animals. They're the ones that are actually the true savages." After Cannon did not apologize for the comments, Viacom CBS cut ties with Cannon. He was fired from Wild 'N Out, an improv series that he had hosted and starred in for 15 seasons. Cannon has also hosted other shows for Viacom CBS' own Nickelodeon channel over more than 20 years and was named chairman of spin-off Teen Nick in 2009. In a statement, the network said, quote, "Viacom CBS condemns bigotry of any kind. We categorically denounce any forms of anti-Semitism." And finally, number 1, Tom Bergeron. Tom Bergeron hosted the hit show Dancing with the Stars since it started in 2005. But that all changed in 2020 when he was abruptly fired. Since then, he has given more details, and it's clear that he and production butted heads. In one interview, he admitted that he saw it coming and was not shocked when he was fired. This is because he had spoken up against the things he disagreed with, to the dismay of the show. Bergeron said, quote, "The show had changed a lot for me starting in early 2008. The show I left was not the show that I loved. We had very clear, sometimes public differences of opinion about the new showrunner and some of the execs, and happily, I was at a point in my life and career where I didn't have to just shut up and take it." Although he never got into specifics, it was rumored that a huge point of contention between him and the show were the political stars that came on. He previously shared his disagreement with President Trump's former press secretary, Sean Spicer, coming on the show. So that's all for the list, guys. Let me know your thoughts below. Before I go, I'm going to shout out some comments from Secrets that celebrities took to the graves part 3. Jerome said, "Ben Franklin also helped chart the Gulf Stream." Wow, he's just so impressive. Like, so much to learn about him. And Sylvia said, "We love you, Mackenzie." Thank you so much. Hopefully you don't mind this at-home setup that I have here. And Jackie said, "Immortal Beloved is a fantastic movie. We all know who killed Nicole and Ron." Yeah, we really do know. I mean, at this point, if there's literally no other suspects, like, come on. Alright guys, that is all for the video today. I've been your host, Mackenzie Smith, and we will catch you in the next one.